AskReddit.
Serious, people who have survived a murder attempt by dumb luck. What's your story? Was a bouncer at a club in LA for a minute in the 90s. Stopped some dudes clearly affiliated in a gang at the door after they refused security checks. After a few minutes of their threats and Manson lamps, they left spewing all sort of warnings. A little later it starts to wind down, and because it's a little slow and we are overstaffed, so I start to drink. I get a bit drunk, not wasted, but sleepy bust, so I tell my buddy I'm going to go lay down in the back of his car for a while. A few minutes after lying down I realize I have to piss. I get out and stumble a few into a spot between a guard gate for a parking lot and a building for a little privacy. There's a few dozen people milling around in front of the club. I'm about 25 feet away from the club's entrance and just off an alleyway. While I'm relieving myself, a dude runs right past in front of me, around the guard booth to my rear, and unloads a 9mm recovered rounds from backseat / trunk / roof / bumper into the backseat of the car I just crawled out of. Bam 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 bam. Unloading into the car. He then turns, runs right back past me, and down the alley into the night. Don't think he saw me at all. Nothing really came of it, except my partner was convinced I was a marked man and refused to be near me for a year or so. Mine's not extreme by any chance, but a couple of years ago my brother and I went to walk the dog at like 11 p.m. We left through the side gate, live on a corner, and right as we exit I see this weird looking dude at the corner of the footpath walking weirdly towards us. Got bad vibes and told my brother to get the dog and get back inside. This dude is walking kind of side on and hiding something in his hand behind his back. As I'm getting my brother through the gate, the dude says something like, "Oh, I'm made, can I come in? I need a blanket, I'm freezing." I just ignored him and went inside and locked the door. We then get a call from the people who live 2 doors up. The same dude knocked on their door and their 10-year-old son opened it to see the dude holding a fucking hatchet. Anyway, I'm glad I went with my gut on that one. Well, my mom got mad at me when I was 20 and I didn't give her money for her birthday, which I'm assuming was to pay off drug dealers of hers. So she stabbed me between the ribs. Ended up getting stuck in the bone and had to get it taken out in surgery. So, I did not know it was a murder attempt at the time, but looking back now, it was a definite possibility. In middle and high school my next door neighbors were a boy 1 year younger than me, John, and his younger brother who was 4 years younger than him, Nathan. My own younger brother and I had a similar age gap, and we found ourselves around each other all the time. Now I'm a female and the rest of the group was all males, so there were just naturally times when the 3 of them would hang, and I wouldn't be around. One day my little brother, who was around 9 at the time, comes home with a porno mag and is telling me about the porn videos they were watching as a little unit. Now guys, I have no idea if this is something that is done in your pre/adolescent circles, but it freaked me the hell out and I told my mom. My mom then went and told their single dad. What I didn't know was their dad was an abusive piece of shit who beat both of those boys so badly that they couldn't go to school for weeks. No, we didn't call the police, we just filed it away and knew from that point forward to never tattle. I still carry the guilt of telling on John and Nathan with me to this day because it set off a chain of events I would have never anticipated. As we got older, the brothers started acting out more and more, bullying other kids, vandalism, weird shit like toying with roadkill. As the level-headed female in the group I opposed all of these things, and a faction emerged with me and the other neighborhood kids on one side, and John and Nathan on the other just fucking shit up and causing trouble. One day I had done something to piss off John, and he came at me with a large chef's knife. I didn't have shoes on, so I took off running through the backyard and crossed into the neighbors. John was hot on my tail, trailing me by maybe 4 feet, when I fell down. There was some sort of exposed PVC drainage pipe that had been shattered at the top, that I didn't see it and ran over. My foot was sliced open immediately, and I went down screaming. I think it shocked him, my screaming, the sudden change of pace, and the blood. He stopped, laughed at me, then ran home presumably, so he didn't get his ass whipped. After I took care of myself, I told my mom what happened with the knife. She had started dating someone new, and I think this was the sort of feather that broke the camel's back. We moved to another part of town in the same district about a 10-minute drive from our old house. Around that exact time we moved in, a new family moved into the house on the other side of John and Nate. Things continued down a bad path for those boys. Over the next year they got in trouble with school and would randomly show up at our new house, locked out of their own. The year I went off to college I received a panicked phone call from my mom telling me to look up the local newspaper. John had murdered the girl who had moved into the other house next door to him. It was really grisly too. He chopped her up and stuffed her into a trunk that sat outside in his dad's car all day while a family picnic was happening. He and his little brother got caught trying to throw the trunk into the river from a bridge at night by a cop who happened to be driving by. I just thought to myself, that could have been me. Both brothers have been locked up for what has to be about 10 years at this point. They were both tried and convicted as adults. Everyone in our town just wants to see them burn in hell, but honestly the only thing I can think about is how it might have been different if our family reported the abuse from the onset. Maybe their little minds wouldn't have warped from a tender age. Throwaway because it got some media. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I was representing this guy that had embezzled almost $500K from his business partner. He was looking down the barrel at several years in prison, a bunch of his assets had been seized by the government, was being sued by multiple creditors for north of $2 million, and was in the midst of an ugly divorce, and wasn't allowed to see his kids. I was one of 3 lawyers he had: criminal, civil and divorce. He was drinking a lot and using coke. I used to get this incoherent phone calls in the middle of the night that ranged from threats to crying. He came to my office one day and asked for me, but I was in court. My secretary said he was perfectly civil. He then went to his divorce lawyer's office and shot him to death. Got stopped by the police a short distance away and was wounded in a shootout. He would later tell the cops that he had come to my office to shoot me that day and also planned to shoot his civil attorney. Why? You were presumably hired on to defend him, so why did he even do that? So confusing. He was not in a rational state of mind. People sometimes have a tendency to blame their lawyers when the situation isn't going to get resolved how they like. I know 2 other attorneys who have been assaulted or threatened with weapons by clients. I was abducted at a gas station during undergrad. The locks on my car were broken, and as soon as I got back in, a strange man came in and forced me to drive him to an ATM. I'm paralyzed with fear, so any sense or reason I had went out the window. He claimed he worked at Wendy's, and for my generosity he would give me all the Wendy's I ever wanted. On the way to the ATM he showed me pictures of his daughters on his clearly stolen cell phone. Then a Whitney Houston song came on the radio, and he starts bawling his eyes out and screaming, "Why do all the good people have to die? Only bad things should happen to bad people." I go to the ATM, take out cash, give it to him thinking it's over. He then makes me get back in the car and drive him somewhere else. We pass by some train tracks, and I'm thinking this is it. This is where I will be murdered. He asks me what I'm studying in school, and I tell him biochemistry. I believe in jet propulsion and all that shit. We are not alone, aliens are among us. He then makes me pull over at a gas station, and he tells me, "Drive away, sweetheart." I call the cops, had to do a lineup. Apparently this dude had done this to a ton of other women, and some were less unscathed than I was. I was exiting a bar once after last call, and was with a friend who was a medic. We saw a girl laying in a snowbank near a telephone pole who had just been hit by a car. We ran over and tried to help her. Some others were already on the phone with 911, and I, not having any medical training, didn't have anything to contribute, but didn't want to just leave. The whole situation was concerning. I turn around for a second and start to hear people screaming. I turn around, a minivan was heading for us. The few people around this woman, they already started to run, but I was too late. He hit me as I was trying to flee, put the car in reverse, ran over me again, and then went forward and ran over me a 3rd time. Turns out the guy was high and drunk and got into a fight with the women's BF, whom I bared a strong resemblance to. He thought I was him. Not to throw a pity party for myself, but 9 years later I have a ton of medical issues, and my life pretty much started on a downward spiral since then. But sure, I guess I survived. Edit. For everyone wondering about the guy, an off-duty cop watched the whole thing go down and copied his license plate number. He was apprehended 20 minutes later and charged with attempted murder, along with many other things. He pled out to just 3 years in jail. He had actually killed someone else a few years before drunk driving. How they thought that was appropriate is beyond me.